Hello everyone, welcome to my new video about advanced micro devices. So today we're gonna talk about this interesting market segment of semiconductors. And there are a few key players in this market, of course AMD, Intel and Nvidia, as well Taiwan Semiconductor. But today's focus is about AMD, which is also a favorite company of mine. This is the company that taught me investing on a broader idea ever back in 2016. So yeah, let's have a look at the company. So foundation is basically Jerry Saunders, this gentleman that founded the company together with a few ex-Intel engineers back in 1969. Interestingly, Intel was founded actually just a year earlier, less than a year earlier, in 1968. So these two companies have been battling it out ever since the late 1960s. And since we talk about Intel today, so let's just remember this gentleman, Mr. Gordon Moore, who passed away last week. So he's a really key player into the whole of this market. So rest in peace, Gordon Moore. Now, going back into the today, and my whole thesis of this is investment idea is based on this, that AMD is supposed to be able to claw back more market share from mainly Intel and hopefully also from Nvidia in the other market segment they are active in. So if you look at this data here from Statista, obviously these numbers are difficult to say how exact they are, but the trends is definitely correct. So as you see, like in the beginning of the decade of 2010s, Intel was clearly the leader in this market, like close to 80% and sometimes over 90, or over 80, and even at times over 90 according to different data. So they had big chunk of the market, and in fact AMD was, especially in the late 2014 and 15, they were like almost on the verge of bankruptcy. You would see articles online which would talk about AMD going bankrupt any day. And this is where you would say the recovery of AMD started. So we have this guy called Jim Keller. He's a CPU architect, and he's really famous. He's been working at Tesla, he's been working at Apple, and even recently at Intel, and of course at AMD back in mid 2010s. So Mr. Jim Keller and his team at AMD, they started this new architecture called Ryzen. And the specialty with Ryzen was that they went from this, as you see on the left side of the picture, this monolithic side of CPU design to the chiplet side of things. And the one thing that you get with this transfer of monolithic to chiplets is just you get much better financial economics on your manufacturing side of things. Obviously I cannot go into the details now because it would require, I don't know, an hour. So we will look into it later, but in a moment, if you're interested, please go watch AdoredTV. He has some really good videos on how you can gain really good margins if you move from this monolithic side to the chiplet side. So I will definitely link to his channel, AdoredTV, and he has so many different videos that explain this in detail if you're interested. So yeah, so with this with Jim Keller and his team moving to the chiplet design of Ryzen back in 2016-17, AMD started to claw back some market share, you can see in this area. Now if we go into AMD's own webpage, and we'll see the latest earnings report, they are reporting in 4 different segments: the data center, the client, gaming and embedded. These different segments obviously include, for example, in the data center, as you hear on the name, is big server sites, and yeah, this is also the one that according to me is the main driver from now on. Because the other sides, the gaming side and the client side, they have been main drivers since the PS5 launched and new laptops launching with energy efficient AMD solutions. But for going forwards, this is where the big pie is in the data center. So if AMD needs to, or if they want to keep increasing their revenue, they definitely need to gain back some market share here. And I believe they're definitely on the good road, and especially since Intel has troubles with the new servers. So this is not a far-fetched future. In my opinion, this is already started, and there are many articles and rumors and even numbers leaking that shows that AMD keeps increasing their market share in this very important segment. This has been Intel's main income site, and they've been quite lazy in the last few years. Now when AMD now started to gain back some market share, you see that Intel has some troubles. And if we just look at the stocks here, and you see that Intel is they're not doing good. I mean, the market cap is even less than AMD, and this is very, I believe, shocking for a lot of people that are not so well read into this market, that most people assume that Intel should be more valued on the stock market, but actually not. You look at these numbers, like AMD is some 15-25% bigger than Intel if you look at the market cap side. Of course, if you look at employees, it's a different story. But then of course you have the outlier here, Nvidia, which in my mind compared to the other two is just too overvalued. But that's for another day. So yeah, I've made just a chart of AMD in the last few years, and you see that they started in, I don't know, if you look at 2014-15, revenue was hovering around 5.5 billion. Then it actually regressed to less than 4 billion, around 4 billion. And this is where, I believe in 2017, this is where actually late in the second 2 quarters you start to see AMD clawing back market share with the introduction of the first generation of Ryzen. So yeah, this is and then as you see 2018 also a nice increase, 19, and then during the pandemic years they had really good explosive growth. Like look at this, like they went from like 6 billion to over close to 25 billion, which is insane. Now to be honest, this is not only due to organic growth. AMD has also purchased Xilinx. Let's see here, just a quick googling here. So Xilinx was a company that did this thing called FPGAs. I'm not an expert in this area, but this is basically some special kind of processors that are field programmable. I'm not very well read on that specific segment, but this is for another video. But just so you know, so the reason why you see the jump in the revenue also partly is due to the actually acquisition of Xilinx. But all good, even excluding Xilinx, they actually really started to increase their revenue. But and also more importantly, you look at the gross profit. So 2022 over 10 billion, and look at where they were like in 2015, around 1 billion. So they increased the revenue by a factor of 4 to 5, but the gross profit increased by 10x, which is really good. And gross margin has been going up as well. Again, you'll see here that in the mid of the decade they were hovering around 20-30%, and now they're close to 50%, which is good. Now especially for 2022 the numbers has been going down, but this is not a bad thing. It's actually due to just writing down cost for acquisition of Xilinx. So this is not a they are not doing anything bad. This is just like writing down cost of basically costs related to acquisition. So I believe like once we see the numbers for 2023, we'll definitely see that the gross profit increases, and we definitely see that or at least most likely see that the gross profit increases, but we'll definitely see that the margin will increase. Now again, with operating expenses also due to the acquisition of Xilinx, so I think this number of 2021 are a bit more representatives than the 2022 numbers. So what I'm doing to calculate what I believe is fair value for the company is actually to take 2021's numbers, especially in terms of operating income, and add to that some 25-50% for 2023, excluding the Xilinx acquisition cost. And I believe we would round around 5 billion of operating income for this year. This is my target at least, and the net income should be around 3.5 to 4.5, maybe 5, I don't know, somewhere thereabouts. So I don't think the net income of 2022 is representative for how well the company is actually executing. So yeah, in my view, I think that looking at let's say that they managed to get 4.5 billion of net income, and if you take that number, 4.5 billion times, let's say 25 times 4.5 times 25, you'll get a number of 112. So the market capitalization of AMD given a PE ratio of 25 would be around 110 billion. So let's go back to the Yahoo Finance and see what the market cap is today. So 160 roughly. So it's, maybe you could say, especially given the situation on the markets today, maybe it's a bit too expensive. I would agree. And actually looking at the 52-week range, of compare it to the competition, Nvidia is obviously, in my opinion, highly valued, way too overvalued in my opinion. Intel is difficult to say. This definitely has been a value trap lately. Now you could also say that potentially at some point, if they get their stuff together, you could see them starting to stabilize the bleeding and gain some market share back. Possibly. I think it's difficult for the first 2023 and maybe next year as well. But maybe if they execute correctly in 2025 with the new CEO Pat Gelsinger, possibly they could stabilize the ship. And with AMD, I think is still to this day the best of the three. So sure, you could argue it's actually a bit expensive, but given that they are still small players, especially compared to Intel, like look at this, they are still there's definitely room to claw back some market share for AMD, and there's definitely room for Intel to lose more market share. And add to that the GPU side of things compared against Nvidia. I mean, Nvidia has been really taking a mockery of the gaming fan base, and they just keep increasing the price. And I believe if AMD has the will, they would definitely be possible to claw back some market share from Nvidia, and that would as well help to increase the revenue of AMD in the coming 2, 3, 4 years. Obviously, I don't expect as much as a growth as I've seen, let's say from 2015, 16, 17, 18 and so on, but I'll definitely see them grow at 20% a year, maybe 15 to 25% a year on revenue side, and also actually being more lean. So I think not only would they increase their revenue, let's say at that number 20% or something, but their profit, the gross profit and the net income will probably increase faster than the revenue increase. That's my assumption. So again, this is not investing advice, but I believe that AMD is a really interesting company, especially with them venturing into AI and the server markets also venturing into a bit more graphics. And we know that Nvidia has been really dominating the graphics, as Intel did back in the middle of 2015-16. So in my suspicion is that AMD will not claw back as market share compared to Nvidia, but I believe they still will be able to claw back a bit. Maybe not this dramatic, but at least let's say that they get 30% of market share, 40%. That really could be a interesting case for AMD. So yeah, I think it's that will do it for today, and it's just the first video to share with you a bit of the history of these three players. I will definitely look into Intel and Nvidia as well, and in my opinion AMD is possibly a good candidate. So yeah, thank you for watching my video, and hopefully I'll see you later in my next video. Thanks, have a nice evening, bye.